Hi, folks. Dave Schmidt. It's Tuesday, October 4th, as I'm coming to you today. And I always want to thank everybody that joins me each week with these videos, the newsletter, and my live weekly radio programs on Wednesday night. And obviously, all those radio programs are archived, and you can listen to them anytime. And also, what you can do, you can go to the Blog Talk Radio Pro page via my website, and you can even download the radio programs to an MP3 file. Well, the biggest question that we always seem to have and we're asking ourselves is, why is this money being released to us? In the past, I've talked about what are called the practical perspectives of that. I've talked about the intent to fulfill the original Bretton Woods Agreement from back in 1948. And I've talked about also the collateral accounts and all this money that is out there. A couple of weeks ago, I had the guest, Dr. Kohler, and I explained more about his visit with us last week. And I also mentioned a book, what is called Gold Warriors, by the Seagraves, a husband and wife couple that literally did over 20 years of research about what is called Yamashita's gold. All the gold that was collected by Japan and it held in a series of 127 different caves and bunkers in the Philippines. Now that gives you real practical, real world documented evidence of massive amounts of gold that's worth trillions and trillions of dollars, but yet everything that we get told from inside its sources is that's just a very small part of everything that is out there. Well, why is this being released to us? Part of it is what I call about the timing. It's the timing of the human race coming to a place where we are ready to grow and to evolve into a new state of our own sense of consciousness. I talk about this in my workshops, that we have just fulfilled what is called a 26,000-year cycle. And every time this happens, there's always huge monumental shifts and changes in the evolution of the human race. Well, we went through that back in 2012, and we're now working our way through, moving into a new age. We have been living in financial slavery for thousands of years, and we're now ready to be released from that. And the release from that comes on a step-by-step process. And that step-by-step process always deals with how we as humans give our thoughts and the energy that comes from our thoughts to this process. One of the reasons why I so totally believe that all these funds are going to be released is because there are literally 100,000 people or more that truly believe this. And we're all putting our energy into that. I've been able to have the privilege of meeting so many wonderful people, very deeply seated people, and been down more rabbit holes that most people can hardly even begin to conceive. And there's reasons why there's various stories, various interpretations, and various perspectives about all these funds being released. And I'm not here to debate what others are saying. I share with you the information that I receive. But what I want to do today is, instead of talking more about the practical side of the funds, I want to talk a little more about the philosophical side and how it impacts us, and part of the reason of why this is happening. And I want to do that again by coming back to what is understanding how important it is for all of us to be able to get in touch with our thoughts. Because your thoughts are what determine your experiences. The thoughts that you project come from inside of what's taking place of us on the inside, and we project those into the outer world, and that gives the perceptions of what we choose to believe. Because it's our beliefs and our thoughts that predicate and bring about the world that we either want or that we don't want. Well, it was a number of years ago. In fact, I realized as I went back and I looked at almost past 3 years of all the messages and the videos that I've brought to you, I had never talked about something that has always been very dear to me, and something that a topic that I did my master's thesis on over 35 years ago. And it all has to do with the concept of how we believe and what we listen to. The thoughts that we listen to deep inside of us at the unconscious or subconscious level is what forms our beliefs. And these beliefs become what are called the faith, the issues that becomes the foundation of what produces the world that we experience. Well, it was over 35 years ago, and as I've shared with you, my bachelor's degree, I was in religion, and my master's degree, I have a master's degree in biblical studies. And understanding the scriptures have always been very, very important to me, and I've always had a deep love for them. My view of them has transgressed and changed over the years, but I've never lost that deep love for them. And again, it came back to where I said I have a master's degree in biblical studies, and it was in my senior year in college, in my undergraduate work, I was in my second year of New Testament Greek, and I came across this word that really astounded me. It kind of stunned me. I was going through a passage, and I was doing what was called an exegetical analysis of the original language, and I came across this word, to obey. And I thought, that's kind of a word that seems to always have a negative connotation to us. And we don't like that because we seem to think that it's something that's being imposed upon us, that we have to obey somebody that is bringing something to us or imposing something on us. And if we don't do this, something good or unhappy is going to happen in our lives. And I saw this word and I found out it was entirely different. That's where perceptions can be a part of what is called folklore or stories that are told in contrast to the real truth of what is there. When I saw this word, I saw that in the original Greek language, I saw that it was a combination of two different words. And the Greek word is called hupakuo. Hup-akuo. It's a combination of the word hupo and the word akuo. And this word akuo sounds a little familiar because, see, we get our English word acoustics from that word. And what akuo means is to hear. It literally means to hear. And hoop is a prefix that means under. And so when you combine those two, it means underhearing. And what is the underhearing? It's what we're listening to and we're hearing in the unconscious mind. And the reason the word is translated to obey is because we will automatically obey whatever it is we are listening to in the unconscious mind. Whatever we give our focus to, our attention to, we will do, regardless of whether it can be something that's very good and productive or something that can be harmful and destructive. So it's the beliefs that we determine in ourselves that come from the unconscious mind that really predicate what we begin to experience in our lives. This word was such a profound word for me that I ended up, as I said, doing my master's thesis on it. And I began to discover that it wasn't just there in the New Testament Greek, it was also there in the Old Testament Hebrew. And this language has been traced back, and the word has been traced back in historical usage to go back almost 4,000 to 5,000 years. And when you find what is called a powerful word, and you find it appearing in ancient languages that aren't even related to each other, I call these what are called power words of the universe. And the word to obey with the concept of to hear is one of those. In the Hebrew, it's called the Shema. And there was a phrase that the Old Testament ancient Israelites would use, I'm going blank on the term I want to use right now, but the Old Testament very ancient Israelites would have a practice of what was called the Shema. And it was a statement, and it was a phrase. And this was the very first thing that they would say when they would utter from their lips when they would get up in the morning. And it was the last words that they would utter from their lips before they would go to sleep at night. And the phrase in the Hebrew goes like this: Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Yachad. And in the English it says, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And so it was saying, pay attention to this, understand this, and know this. Now, traditionally, that phrase has been interpreted to mean that the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It would be monotheistic theology, that there is only one God, not multiple or pluralistic gods. But at the very root, that's what was taught. That was the folklore that came forward. That was the history that came out of that understanding. But when you really do the deep research behind it, you realize it said it would really mean something else. It meant that the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It was teaching the concept of oneness in the universe, that everything in this universe is connected, and that God is the connecting source. And however we want to apply or use that term God, it is the connecting source of the whole universe, and all of us are connected to that. And that goes into contrast to what is called duality consciousness, or dualism, and another term that is used is called separation. What we're seeing at the very root core of all of our human problems is the concept of separation, the concept of duality consciousness. Duality consciousness says that everything is out there has opposites: up, down, light, dark, good, bad, high, low. Everything comes into this place of separation. I am separated from you. I am different. That is what most of us are taught to believe, and we believe that very deeply. But quantum physics, even today, shows that that is just an illusion. It is something that we have chosen to believe, so therefore it is something that we create. Even quantum physics today will show us that everything in this universe is connected. There is no separation. So it's the separation consciousness that creates the vast majority of all of our problems. It's the separation consciousness that has created the wars, has created the slavery, that has created the tension, the conflicts. It's the separation consciousness that creates the anxiety, the anxiousness, the fear, the sicknesses, the disease. Because when you get to the quantum level, even Albert Einstein said there is no such thing as matter. This physical world is just an illusion that we live in. Therefore, when we come to this whole idea around the money, it has one primary purpose: to help us take a step in undoing this separation consciousness. You hear me quote quite frequently from A Course in Miracles. Well, there's a reason that I do that, because I've come to understand that the Course in Miracles, as it says within itself, is the only truly pure non-dualistic teaching that we have today. There were a lot of other teachings that became very close. They were in the right place with the right ideas. We're also starting to see a lot of different teachings that are beginning to arise, and it's amazing how they all start to come out of a specific era in time around the understanding of separation. Nothing but nothing sets us free more than knowing how to undo this thought process of the separation. And it's A Course in Miracles that teaches that. You've heard me talk about the Dr. Neruda interviews from the wingmakers.com page, and how Dr. Neruda was a part of the Labyrinth group that was associated with a gentleman by the name of A.R. Borden that I've talked about. And you can go back and you see my interviews that I have with Michael Lee Hill, who was tutored by A.R. Borden for almost 5 years. At the very core of the Neruda interviews, he talks about the concept of separation and how we as a human race have a mission to undo that. And if we don't, that is the reason why we keep ourselves in the various forms of slavery. For most of my life, I did not believe in reincarnation because that's what I was taught. But I also allowed myself to come to the point of asking questions. When I gave myself the freedom to start questioning everything that I believed, to question it doesn't mean that I don't believe it. It means to question it, to understand it. To not just take it at face value because that's what somebody taught me. And that's something that I accepted. And that was a belief that I had developed. But when you begin to question it, you begin to really look at its root core. And I began to realize and understand, I says, why is it that only what is called recent Western history of Christianity is the only place that denies reincarnation, when every other philosophical, religious, or types of belief systems of all the cultures through the human race have always believed in it? I began to realize, well, something's not quite right here. And so I began to study it, and I understood where it came from and its origination, and why that belief in not in reincarnation was imposed upon us by a people that attempted to dominate and control us and to keep us in fear. Well, since then I have come to understand that the vast majority of all of us have lived hundreds, if not well over 1,000 lives. And it's in the Dr. Neruda interviews, and again in the teachings of A Course in Miracles, and in the writings of my most favorite author, Gary Renard, who's the author of Disappearance of the Universe, a book I've shared with you. And you can go back onto my YouTube channel, and you will see me talk about that in an interview that I had with Gary Renard back in May. And they all talk about the need to undo the separation consciousness, because that's what keeps us stuck in the constant recycling, and that the physical body is just a shell, but we have to continue going through this over and over and over again until we change the very core of our beliefs. And that is the process of what is called undoing the human ego, undoing the concept of separation, undoing the belief in separation. And when we shift and change those beliefs, life begins to change. When I begin to work on this whole concept of undoing my ego, nothing has impacted my life and changed my life more than that. What I truly believe is life is not looking for something that is outside of us, something that is out there to want to come into our lives to shift and change and heal everything. No, everything that we want and desire and want to have is already inside of us in its energetic form. And it's about removing the blocks. And when you remove the blocks, life begins to flow with what I call the flow of abundance, the flow of ease. When I made that breakthrough in my life about 3.5 years ago, everything changed in my life. Life began to flow for me. All these rabbit holes began to find me. This journey that I have been on, sharing this information with you, has been a journey of 3.5 years of utter amazement. I have been able to make contacts with people that most people can just dream of. I've been able to make very deep contacts with the Labyrinth Group and the Jason Society, which both of them say are the most powerful and secret organizations on this planet. And they're comprised of the brightest scientists in the world. And they will tell you that no government can touch them. That's how powerful they are. But they are also benevolent. They are here for us to help us bring in a new world. And I've also been in touch with what I call the money people, the Dragon families, the Rodriguez Trust, who by their own confessions will say, we own over 90% of all the money on this planet. And we have the financial records that go back hundreds, if not over 1,000 years to prove it. And what they will say is that every dollar in every bank account is collateralized by the gold that they are either in possession of or that they are the keepers of. Because see, what is money? Well, the currency, the physical paper currencies, only makes up about 5-6% of the money on this planet. The rest of it is what? Digits on a screen, on a bank account. That's all that it is. And most of the money in our world is fiat currency. Nothing really backs it up except the faith that we have in it. And we know the banking system that has created this fiat currency system is about ready to collapse. Why? Because it's time for the change. And it's time for this shift. It's time for the money that we put our faith into that brings about everything in our lives that we desire and we want. It's time for that shift and change. But at the philosophical very foundation of that, it's about the shift and change in our belief systems. When we believe that we're ready for a change, when we believe that we are worthy for a change, when we begin to shift and change out of fear issues, old paradigms of thinking, old thought processes that the banks are our enemy and they are to be feared, when we start to see them with what we call thoughts of higher consciousness, that the banks aren't your enemies, they get to be our friends. They're here to help us. When we understand that this money is coming forward for what reason? As a major step in undoing the separation consciousness. And that's all that it is. Because see, eventually we are going to move into a world of economic parity. And that's what these quadrillions of dollars being released is for. It's designed to take us through the process where there's economic parity all around the world. And when you have economic parity, then money is no longer used as a tool of power and control. When we come to that point, then we will find the money will begin to phase away. And we will literally, truly move into a world where money is not necessary. Because what is it? Just digits on a screen that we believe in that gives us a sense of security and power and hope and things and that we want. When we shift and change how we believe, then those things begin to fade away. My favorite author, Gary Renard, the title of his first book is called Disappearance of the Universe. And what it alludes to is, as you undo the ego thought process, as you undo the separation consciousness, the universe that you believe in begins to disappear. It goes away. And it gets replaced with a world of truth instead of a world of illusion. The money is predominantly for one primary purpose: to help us heal ourselves as a human race. It's the steps in the thought process that we go through. And we go through these steps because the steps help us change our belief systems. And the belief systems are what we obey, what we listen to in the unconscious and the subconscious minds. It's when we change those, when we undo the ego, when we change our beliefs and we bring them into positions of truth, we will obey those thoughts. We will obey those beliefs. We will obey those issues, and we will bring about the new world that we all want. I'm very, very hopeful in this process. I very much believe in it. It's very much a part of me. And as I've been going through these 3.5 to 4 years that I've been involved in it, it's almost like my life from 1 year ago was a past life that doesn't even exist anymore. My life has been changing that much, that fast. But what changes? What I believe. The very foundation of my beliefs. I don't see the world as I used to see it. My old world has disappeared. And my new world is a very hopeful world, a very positive world, a very loving world, and a world without war and conflict. Yes, it will take what we call time to work through all of that. I want to read to you a quote out of the Course in Miracles. It's a very important one to me. And it says, "The memory of God comes to the quiet mind. It cannot come to a mind where there is conflict." It's the peace of God, the memory of God, the presence of God comes to when our minds, and that includes the subconscious and the unconscious minds, are at peace and they aren't in conflict. We remove the conflict by shifting and healing how we think. And again, the whole concept of obedience is a very foundational aspect of that. Yes, I will one day write a book about that. That obedience has nothing really to do with what we thought it was. It all has to do with what we listen to, what we hear. Because we obey what we listen to. I'm learning to enjoy the new steps of obedience in my life. I'm learning to enjoy the new life that is coming about for me. A life of amazement, a life of wonderment, a journey of anticipation, and a journey of faith that has led me to being able to participate at the levels that I participate at. Most people can only dream of the experiences that I've been able to have. There will always be criticism. There will always be doubters. But I will also come back and say, none of you have been able to walk the path that I've been able to be on. And I know that that path is just a journey, and it's not anywhere close to being done. Because see, once the funds are released, then it's time to really go to work to help shift and change our world. And I know that all of you want to be a part of it. And that's the real reason why we are here and why we are getting to participate in being blessed. Because the bottom line is to shift and change this world. And at the very written core of that, it's about undoing this whole concept of separation, where we truly come to understand what is oneness, the peace of God. Thank you very much. I'll look forward to you joining me on the radio program this week. I love all of you. Okay, bye-bye.